Hi, guys. Welcome back to the TRC podcast, part two of our introduction episode. Part one, we focus more on introducing ourselves and the various different analytics that we're going to be bringing to the table. In part two, we're going to be discussing the Darlington Race, the controversy, and everything surrounding that. So, if you want to listen to that Darlington recap, here it is. Which is going to make talking about this weekend especially uncomfortable. So we'll talk about the Darlington race now. Obviously, Logano wins it. Um, Now, I'm not going to sit here. I think most people would say it wasn't exactly an undeserved win. He did lead the most laps. He was basically the only car, one of the only cars left running who had a case for being um, a top 5, top 10 car in the day. I think Chase maybe was the other car in contention who had a claim for that. Um, Heavy
Reddick.
attrition race. Go ahead.
Reddick was up there.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah, especially later on in the going. But yeah, Logano had a great race, so I don't think anyone's going to argue that he didn't deserve the win, especially with how many good cars fell out. But oh, the way he got it. Yeah, even as a fan, I don't think I can't really I can't really defend what he did to poor William Byron there, even if um even if the video shows that Byron did make contact with him on that last restart. I mean, we'll be honest, Logano didn't even try to pass. He just ran into the guy in the turn and just completely shoved him out of the way. So not a good look. Not a good look for someone who's already made a lot of pretty indefensible decisions from on the racetrack anyways. So not great for me as a fan, but I want to know uh, what you guys thought, what your perceptions were of that controversial finish there.
So I guess I can go first. Like the thing about it, and this has always been why I've never really warmed up to Joey. It's that it wasn't he never even attempted to like try and race him clean. It was just immediately as soon as he caught him, smash on the back bumper, and was it retaliation for the first thing? I guess that's how he saw it, but even if it was, Byron did not put him in the wall. This was not like Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch at the 2010 All Star race level. This was not Larson and Elliott at Fontana earlier this year, as far as like a block, putting somebody in the wall. So even if that was retaliation, I don't feel like it was that level of it was warranted for what Byron did. Um, and again, it's just like you have you've been the fastest car all day. I thought Joey drove a great race. Like that was one of the best races I've seen of him in a long time. Like maybe a couple years, I would say, as far as it was a very aero sensitive race, and which is weird, and I guess we'll probably talk about that. But the way he was using the air, that's kind of like a knack that he's you know strung together for himself lately, is like the way he's able to like use air, especially when he's like leading. I thought he did a great job with that, and he stayed up there all day, and he never made the mistakes that other guys like Ross, I thought, had one of the fastest cars. Larson, both those guys spun unassisted. Uh, so he drove a great race, and it was just, I guess that's how I felt. Was like it's just a shame that instead of him just like winning it clean, like, oh, Joey had a great race for the first time in a couple years, it's now like, oh, he just knocked William out of the way and pissed everybody off.
Kind of piggybacking on that a little bit. I mean, he was running him down so fast. He could have easily just passed him clean, probably, and won the race, or even just maybe give him like a slight nudge that doesn't send him up into the wall. But instead, he just decided to drive right through him like he was Earnhardt at Bristol, and that's not something that's really acceptable. I've gone through periods where I outright despised Logano. I think mainly in 2015, and now he's just a guy who's I guess I moderately dislike him, but it's not gonna ruin my day if he wins or anything. especially because it doesn't happen that often. But that was just not a very good move on his part, I think, and it's something he has a history with. Just races that he would otherwise win, he just decides to knock a guy out of the way anyway. He did it to Kenseth at Kansas, and Truex at Martinsville, really race where Truex raced him clean the whole last 10 laps of the race, and Logano just decides on the last lap to just punt him, and because with a spot in the championship online. I mean, I guess that's kind of understandable, but I like guys who race people the way that they want to be raced, and that was just not a very good move on his part, I think.
It goes
I'll go
back to
next.
sorry, I was just gonna add that real quick. Ryan was listing off his history. It goes back to like the Irwindale thing with Peyton Sellers in like 2008 or something,
Yeah.
2009 rather.
Hey, screw you. That was Joey's the win.
Yeah. Yeah, that was Joey's win. Anyway, I was just gonna add that. Like it goes back to when he was like literally like 18 years old, and it's just like, dude, you haven't grown out of this yet. Like, there's, I don't know. I would have thought. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead, Adam.
Well, I was gonna say, like, I think to piggyback on what you just said, part of the issue people have with Logano, it's not just how he drives and not just his attitude, but the fact that he's perceived as a silver spoon driver because his dad's a millionaire and funded his career and he always had the best equipment growing up. And I don't think he ever had to struggle. He never had to go through adversity like a lot of other drivers did. So there's this perception that he's just this spoiled rich kid. And yesterday he kind of acted like it again. So I think that's partly why a lot of people don't like him. Yeah, think back to the whole Kevin Harvick fire suit thing where his dad had to come in and fight his battles for him. Like,
Yeah, how perfect was it that like the first shot they showed after the burnout was of his dad and his mom
exactly.
together? It
I
was
was
so
thinking
great.
the same thing. It's like
I
it
didn't
was
even realize we're
scripted.
still allowed in the infield.
I was about to say that's the first time I've seen his dad at a track in like 13 years, 10 years, or I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen him.
He might be there more often, but they only show him when he wins.
I think that
Which
was the
hasn't been
first
that
time
much
I
lately.
I think that was the
And I'll
first
just
time I
say,
ever saw his mom at the track before, and she looked. I mean, I don't mean this sarcastically. She looked so proud of her son for doing what he did.
He
Mother's
did it
Day,
for his
no
happy
mom.
less.
Happy
Yeah,
Mother's Day,
Mother's Day.
Mom. I wrecked somebody for you.
I
Right.
don't really hold the whole rich kid thing against him, because let's be real. Every driver in NASCAR in the last probably 40 years would not be in NASCAR if their family didn't have some kind of money or some kind of connection to get them in. We obviously like the guys like Bowman and Chastain, who have it harder than some others, but I mean, even them would. It's there's probably so many guys who just get completely fallen through the cracks because families can't afford to buy a go-kart for them, or have them race in some small time series where they really get started. So I mean, I raced go-karts for a number of years, and I never in my mind did I think this is ever going to be anything that leads to more than
Yeah,
just this.
who was that? That guy. There was some guy that's in the sport now that you raced. Then I remember who
Mm,
was it?
he was in the Cars tour last year, and I'm not sure what happened. I mean, I respect his privacy, but
Yeah. Of
know,
course.
people like that, and I have another friend in this chat group who he was better than me. He won the championship just about every season, and he probably, if his family had enough money, you know, could have gone somewhere, but it just never happened. So yeah, I mean, I don't really hold that against somebody like Logano, and also be a bit hypocritical since I root for guys like Chase Elliott. So for me, it's really just about how you race other guys, and how your attitude is. really. So yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
I guess. Oh, okay. I just wanted to add a few more things about this. Is that I'm probably more in favor of bump and runs and aggressive driving than anyone else here. But I do think there's a line where if you just flat out move somebody without even attempting to pass them clean, as you guys have already mentioned, I think that's where I have an issue with it. If Logano had just done, just a tap of the bumper, just kind of gotten him arrow loose, that would have been fine with me. But the fact that he didn't even try to pass him clean and just drove into him, that rubbed me the wrong way.
Or
But
even there's
yeah,
definitely a line. I totally agree with you 100%. Like there's like an art to a bump and run. Like Jeff Gordon on Rusty Wallace at Bristol, that was like he knew what he was doing. He let him glide across the bumper. You're not wrecking him. You're taking the spot away for a win. And also like, they'd been racing before that. It's not the thing with this, like I said before, is that he didn't even try to race him clean as soon as he caught him. He caught him, smash into the back bumper, and like put him in the wall. Like that, there's no art to that. Like I can respect the art of a bump and run if it's like done, I guess, cleverly or whatever. But I don't know.
yeah, or like another good example, I think, is Carl Edwards doing the bump and run on Kyle Busch in Richmond
Yeah,
in
yeah.
2016, where it's like he moved him out of the way, but he was never going to wreck him, and he still allowed Kyle to finish second. And I
And
think he would have passed him clean if he could have.
the thing with, I'll add to that too, like I would have been even like, say, so this was coming to, I think this was coming to the white that Joey did this, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
It was
if
2 to go, wasn't it?
it was,
Or
I think it was in 3 and 4 coming to the white. I want to say, right? Because
Yeah, I think it was.
either way, what I was gonna say is like if this was in 3 and 4 coming to the checker, I would have even had like less of a problem with it. But it's like you have 2 more laps to race him clean, and you're clearly faster. You've caught him, and that was my thing. It's like immediately when he caught him, there's still 2 to go, and he smashes into him. Like the Edwards Kyle Busch thing, Richmond, like you're saying, that was last corner, last ditch effort. It's like okay, I can respect that a little bit more. But this, I don't know. I don't like it.
No, it's like, I mean, speaking as a fan here, I well, I'm not gonna. No, I had a problem with what Logano did to Peyton Sellers at the Irwindale thing. So I think that's fair. And I mean, besides, it doesn't matter. Peyton Sellers isn't relevant anymore, so
Hey,
I wouldn't care either
come on
way.
now. He's gonna be at SRX at some race somewhere this year.
Oh, good for him.
ooh,
First time I've heard of him in like years. I thought he was like well retired, but I guess not.
And
yeah.
you
I
know,
thought he disappeared off the face of the earth. So
he was like what's his
I
should
name?
have
remember he
known.
was with the
Like Quaz.
Nigerian Prince car in Xfinity.
Oh
Was
yeah,
it
yeah, yeah. I
Jamaica?
remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking he disappeared like to do real estate, like what's his face? Kwasniewski did.
James Busher too.
Busher, yeah, all these guys. Yeah, so I mean, I didn't like that at the time. I always and will still to this day defend the incident at Kansas with Kenseth. I still to this day think that that was not intentional um, under any circumstances, and I think what Kenseth did in Martinsville was kind of chicken shit. But we'll leave that for um,
Well, I'll
another
just
another
I'll just
episode, maybe.
I'll just quickly chime in and say, if it had just been that, I think he would have been fine. But then when he antagonized him at Talladega, and I think Kansas still wasn't going to do anything at Martinsville until Brad just decided to wipe him out for no reason. I think that's finally when he just screw it. I'm just going to wreck him. So I'm not saying that I will never say what Kansas did was right, but at the same time, I think almost anyone would have had the reaction he did at that point. If it had just been the Kansas incident, I'd be more inclined to agree. But
Yeah.
there was just so much that happened in a short period of time, you know.
No, yeah, there's a whole conversation to be had about that. I mean, it's one of the most famous moments of NASCAR's history in the last 10 years. So maybe that'll be a podcast in and of itself. But I didn't have a problem with that at the time, and I still don't. I also didn't have a problem with what he did to Truex at Martinsville because bump and run's the name of the game. And
That one
he
to
didn't.
me was just like a short track racing and all that. But yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
yeah. So
it's
he
short track
didn't
racing.
shove him into the wall. Right, exactly.
Nice impression.
Short track racing. But yeah, didn't shove him into the wall, whatever. But this one just with Byron just sat different. And Byron, I mean, Byron's not a guy who to me shows a lot of emotions, but that dude just like he was hot. He was hot. And I
You
don't
could
think
tell
he's
that. I
gonna
mean, he's like the hardest guy to piss off in the series, and you could tell he was pissed. It was
yeah.
Yeah, when he uses words like idiot and moron, you know he's pissed because
it's
that's
like
Well, there was a
him. That's like
video.
Kyle Busch just going full George Carlin and saying all the bad words.
Yeah.
yeah, pretty much.
Well, there was a video of I guess it's like that Noah Lewis guy. He's like a beat reporter, I guess, and he caught. It was like Byron and Jeff Gordon. Like afterward, Gordon was like, consoling him, and William was saying something like, he's a piece of shit. Like that's all he has to do to fucking win. And I was like surprised
Oh,
that.
wow.
But then
Yeah.
again, I think I've heard him like get kind of irate on the radio before. They do those like radioactive things. So I don't know. I think he's maybe a little bit more uh and this goes along with like some of the other Hendrick drivers in history. I think as a person he's probably a little bit more interesting than he like portrays himself, corporately.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
No. So yeah, I mean we'll see if anything comes of that. I kind of doubt it will, but you never know, We'll see. It might
I was
come to
just gonna
bite Logano in the ass and, in an important moment in the playoffs yet again.
I was just going to say that I don't think I think we covered everyone else's kind of take on the race. I was just going to, give mine after that. I don't really have a lot to add from what everybody else has said. I would, other than to say, if it had been a few years ago, I would have definitely been a lot more upset about it. But between that and the fact that I'm pretty sure that's the last we're going to hear out of Joey until September, I'm not really as mad about it. Plus the fact that I do feel bad for Byron for what happened because I think anybody would be upset in that situation. But at the same time, I don't think he really deserved to win the race. I think he's kind of had more success than he probably deserved this year. He's had a very inconsistent season. He's I think only had one top five outside of his wins this year. And Joey was the best car, and did have it was probably his best performance, his best race since his win at Phoenix in 2020. And so those were kind of some mitigating circumstances. All those are kind of just things that make it easier for me to take. But still, as far as the incident itself goes, with I think Ryan's kind of touched on it before, and I said this specifically in the chat yesterday that what bothers me more about Joey than what he actually does is how he portrays himself. In spite of, I said yesterday that he's basically like Glenn Close from Fatal Attraction. He's kind of like that crazy ass ex that you just can't get away from. If you say or do the least little thing, uh, they'll just act just batshit crazy or do something like that. And he has this way, like just like yesterday was a prime example of doing something, really crappy, but yet making himself look like the victim. And that's the thing that rubs me the most about him. I
Absolutely.
could I could respect it more if it was someone like Kyle Busch or someone else that just does it and says, well, hey, I stand behind that, that's what I did. But don't do stuff like that and play the victim. That's all I ask. Like, you do what you want, but just don't act like you're the one that has been wronged in the situation. That's like, I won't go on about it because I said we'll do that maybe another show, and I don't want to go about it. But that's what irked me the most about the Kansas thing. That's what's irked me about several other times, like the time that he just put Larson into the right and just hooked Larson into the wall or not in the wall, but in the right rear at the All-Star race for no reason. And then this, like the stuff itself would be more acceptable, but just don't portray yourself as being this really nice guy when you do that. Just embrace it. That's all I really have to say about it. But
That's basically what
it's
Kyle Busch said about him.
yeah,
Two-face kind of.
Yeah.
yeah. But like I said, this is probably the last we're going to hear from till September. So I don't really. I'll think about it for any other day, and then that'll be it.
Yeah. Well, in the meantime, after kind of dwelling on that for half an hour in its own, there were other drivers in the race too. There was another part of the race that happened, a
I
big part
think
of the race.
we should talk about the race because this was my favorite Darlington race probably in a while.
Same.
Since
Me too.
and I liked the races last year, but I think they got kind of overrated because of the and it was mentioned earlier, but the whole 750 package versus the 550 package thing. It's very nice to not have to worry about that now, and there's not like, these two different camps that are like pitting themselves against each other. So anyway, I really enjoyed it. Like I liked it better than last year's. I liked it better than I only saw 2 of the 3 2020 races, but I think I liked it better than both of those as well. And I feel like, there was such heavy attrition that it felt almost like a 90s throwback, appropriate throwback weekend, but it felt like an old race, like an old school heavy attrition. The guys are just like manhandling these cars, and it was cool.
Oh yeah. Well, and to go back to what I think it was you who was talking about the arrow push thing. These cars were just out of control, and that resulted in a lot of self spins for drivers who
Ross Chastain,
generally
Kyle Larson, who were like maybe the two of the best car control guys in the entire sport.
exactly, yeah. And then even Truex, I think, a little bit after that, because wasn't it Truex spinning that set off that last big one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was wild to see just how on edge these cars were, and it made it exciting. But it def and yeah, it was exciting, but definitely stressful at the same time. I can't imagine.
I think really that's been great this whole season is that we're seeing, you know, races have been less predictable than they were the past couple of years. Obviously, having real qualifying back has been part of that, but also I think the cars being harder to drive has created more attrition. And I mean, I'm not one of those fans who just watches and hopes there's 15 wrecks every race, but it's good to be able to have that kind of unpredictability factor that you can't just there's nowhere to hide. You know, that's been really great all season, and especially the past couple of weeks. Dover, I thought we saw a really great race, lots of different comers and goers, and then yesterday we saw nobody got out front for too long. Nobody could really pull away from the field other than Larson in the very beginning, and I just think that's been great about this whole season.
Heavy agree.
Yeah, I'll say too, talking about attrition, what made this unique is not just the amount of cars that crashed and had issues, but it was mostly the fastest cars that had issues. Looking at loop data, if you the top 11 fastest cars in terms of green flag speed, 6 of them did not finish the race. And I cannot remember the last time that happened outside of a plate race.
You know what this
Maybe
race?
two.
You know
Yeah.
what this race sort of reminded me of, and this is a way throwback, but 1997 Dover, the first race was like just like this. Like all the leaders were having problems.
Yes, that was one of the classic races from the 90s.
Yeah, I agree.
We'll
That's why
have to talk about that more some other episode because
on
that was an
the
awesome race.
the historic races episode. Anyway,
Yeah.
but that goes back to my main thing though. It felt like a 90s race or something.
Yeah. And you know what? No, never mind. Go on.
No, yeah. Yeah, well, and again, I mean, just to go through that list of drivers who got eliminated. I mean, Kyle Larson, Kyle Busch. I mean, there's another controversy. Kyle Busch leaving his car right in front of right in front of Byron's pit stall, wasn't it? Right in front of the garage entrance.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was something like that. I mean, that
We'll
was its
we'll
own kind of
see.
thing.
We'll see how much of a controversy it is come. I guess it's tomorrow, Tuesday. They hand out the penalties.
Yeah.
I honestly thought that was hilarious. I think Kyle Busch is a guy who I don't root for, but I think I appreciate him for what he is at this point. It's just kind of chaotic evil of NASCAR. He just doesn't give a shit, and it's almost comedic rather than just being a dick. He'll do things like that, or that interview a few years ago where he's everything's great, and it's just you know to spice things up, and you have to appreciate it for what he is, as long as he's not going out of his way to wreck people on the track.
Yeah,
And I thought
it's a
that
lot.
was really after
It's a
what
lot.
happened last year when I think he drove in there too fast. I thought that was almost kind of reaction to that.
Yeah, it's a bit easier to appreciate him now, also because, for one thing, he's not quite as much of a threat to win all the time as he used to be, but also he's not quite at the levels of divanness that he was a decade ago when it was a little bit more unhinged back then. But yeah, I agree.
I feel like he's figured out the entertainment side of things better than anyone else has in the current cup field, and I think um, that's part of why it's easier to enjoy him. I feel like, to an extent, it doesn't feel like he takes himself that seriously. It just feels like a lot of the time he's just kind of playing with us, and I don't know. I find that entertaining.
Yeah, I think that's what he was doing with that whole contract thing a couple weeks ago. Like, it's just Kyle being Kyle. That's what he
Mm.
does. He says things to like stir people up.
Yeah. One last thing on the attrition thing, the statistic that you guys have probably seen. Only 23 cars running at the end of this race, fewest number of cars running at the end of a cup race on a track that isn't a super speedway since the 1994 Summer Bristol race, if that gives you any sense of how kind of unprecedented the attrition levels were for this one.
I thank the crash clock for that. I think I guess I'm kind of in the minority on that here in this server, but I think it's a joke. And the fact that we can't have minimally damaged cars that maybe go 1 or 2 laps down in a wreck, the fact that they're now excluded from the rest of the race. I mean, yeah, in that wreck, Custer and Eric Jones, I thought, and Truex too, all able to drive away from it, but they're out of the race because of the crash clock, and that's just stupid.
Yeah, just make it 10 minutes. To me, it's fine. Just make it 10 minutes. 5 minutes is a joke.
Yeah, it does seem
I'd
a
be
bit
fine with
overly
that.
short.
Yeah. Isn't
Um,
it like 6 minutes? It's not even 5 minutes. Like six is such a weird.
It used to be 5, and they moved it to 6.
Right, that's what I thought. It's like just make it
Yeah,
10. 10 would
just
be
make it
fine.
10. Yeah,
It's
like give the guys a real opportunity to fix their car, and then if they still can't fix it, fine. But 6 minutes is
shouldn't be
not
having to
enough.
rush to fix it to beat like a time limit.
Yeah,
I mean, one way or another, they need to, like, regardless of how long it takes them to fix it, they still need to meet some sort of criteria, like meeting minimum
Of course,
speed. So,
of course. But I mean,
yeah, because I'm saying like that's what they had to do before. So in a way, it's kind of the argument of why wasn't that good enough? Why did we have to install this kind of crash clock system?
that's a good question. And I'll also
well,
add,
it
like,
was. I guess it was a. Guess
oh,
wasn't it kind of a direct reaction to Kenseth at Martinsville, or was that another year after
it
that?
was at Kansas when he was eliminated from the playoffs because of some
No, I remember
stupid technique.
that. That was with the crash clock. I'm talking about. Wasn't it
Oh,
instituted because of?
oh, because of Kenseth wrecking Logano when he was like 100 laps down.
It was only like 10 laps down, but it would have.
Was it?
He would
Oh,
have been out of
okay.
the race I think, with the crash clock.
Okay. Hmm.
Yeah, I remember the Kansas thing. That's one I've gone on about
Well,
before.
come to think of it, I don't
just-
even remember when it started. Actually,
It was 2017 is when the crash
17?
clock started, wasn't it?
I feel like it was like analogous when with stage racing somewhere in
Yeah,
there. So maybe it might have
because
been 17.
I remember the 2017 Daytona 500 had a lot of cars that were only partially damaged,
Oh,
and they were DNF'd more than they would have been in past years.
in
So
that case, I bet it was because of the Homestead in 2016
Yeah,
when the
that might
late
have been
caution
it.
came out because of a car that was off the pace, a bunch of
yeah,
laps down, just dropping debris everywhere.
the
That was
infamous
probably one.
Dylan Lupton caution.
Yes, I just Googled it. It was
There's a name.
2017 for the crash clock. Um, I guess kind of going off of that, the other kind of thing that I just wanted to touch on, I don't know if we're going to have that much to say about it, but those guest analysts, they made kind of a big, they hyped up having Richard Petty in the booth, and God, he was awful. I mean,
Yes, he was.
just sit
Anybody
down,
who's
sir.
watched a race from 1995 could have told you that.
Exactly, yeah.
I love Richard
Yeah.
Petty, but he's not the greatest orator.
No, not even in his prime. I don't think he was the greatest worder, and now he's. I mean, in some ways, like I've seen some of his like mid '90s broadcasting. I almost thought he was better this time around because he didn't even try to describe the action that was going on. He just like was like talking about old stories or whatever, and Mike Joy was indulging him as Mike Joy does. But yeah, kind of um yeah, didn't get much out of his presence, but I thought Labonte was really good, and I thought Bill Elliott was like genuinely like borderline great.
I was
Like I thought
surprised by how good Bill
He was.
was.
He was funny because, like, I loved when he took a shot at Clint Boyer when he said, "Oh, that's your car wrecking like you would," or something like that.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
good.
and then Clint was like, "That's not funny, Bill. You used to be my hero." And it's like, "Oh no, it is funny."
Yeah,
If it were Clint, he would have just ditched his arm and then spun. So
Yeah.
yeah. For my part, see, I actually heard very little of Petty's commentary because I was switching back and forth between the F1 race and that. But I know enough about his previous work to know that that was I wasn't missing anything there, and I didn't actually hear that much of Labonte's either because of the same reason. But from what little I did hear, he was solid. I would guess kind of like Dale Jarrett like, which was good. Uh, but I was also very impressed by Bill Elliott. In fact, I would not just say he was by far the best of the guest analysts yesterday. I think he's been the best of all the analysts that they've had so far this year. Just not even a qualifier on it. I immediately the big crash happened shortly after the stage started. And he was commentating, and he was going in depth describing
Yeah,
the
he was
way
like
that
giving
this new
some
car
insight.
works. Yes, yes, I was impressed with just how hip he was to everything. I mean, you would not think normally when you hear these old guys talk, no offense about these races and things like that. You could tell they have not moved beyond their time period at all. But it was said exactly just like it would have been Dale Jr. commentating, like he's up to date on absolutely everything. That's what really
Yeah,
impressed me the most.
it makes sense though because he's at the track with Chase. Like he even does like some spotting for him at the road courses because they have like multiple spotters. So it makes sense to me that he's like in the know of
Yeah.
like modern things. But
He seems
as
very hands-on
yeah,
with Chase and his development and everything.
right.
So yeah.
But as far as like his delivery and stuff, he definitely surprised me on that end. Like I didn't expect him to be my favorite one of the day, and I thought Bobby was good too.
Yeah.
I
And
thought
and
Labonte was really good.
yeah, no. And I mean I'll take a step back. Look, I don't want to diss Richard Petty by any means. Like the guy's
But he
84
No
does.
one
going
does.
going on
Yeah, nobody
85,
does.
so no one should be expected to do well in the booth there. So, I suppose it's more of a appreciate the novelty of it more than anything else. But yeah, I just don't think he added much to the actual analysis.
I mean, if anything, we should blame Fox for having him on in the first place and putting him in that position when they should have really known that he's not capable of being a good color guy at this point.
What's
That note, can they like fix that ticker anytime soon?
Yeah,
Oh, God.
that's a discussion for a whole other podcast we could have.
Yes.
They have just been an
What
atrocity
they've
this year.
not even the announcing, but the because I think the announcing like I think Mike Joy at this stage of his career is awesome. I've
Joy's
always
the goat.
loved him, and like you know, a lot of people don't like Clint, but I think he's fine. You know, I don't know. I don't really have an issue with him. He's definitely not my least favorite I've ever seen. So anyway, disregarding the commentary, Fox has been like atrocious this year as far as like coverage, like
yeah,
covering
we need to
things that are
talk about that.
happening, and the ticker thing that Ryan said. It's just been like maybe the worst I've ever seen from them in 20+ years.
Yeah, what drives me especially crazy is when something happens, for example, on pit road, a driver loses 20 spots and they never even mention it. And that happens all the time. Like just yesterday,
It's
Chase
weekly at this
Elliott
point.
spun. Yeah, Chase Elliott spun trying to get to pit road. This is the most popular driver in the sport,
They
and they
didn't
didn't
even
even
show it.
mention it.
Not
No,
even a
nothing.
replay or anything.
And it's like, that's just inexcusable. That's absolutely terrible.
Yeah, somebody said that. I saw that online today. Like, oh yeah, Chase spun. I'm like, wait, I don't remember that. And then I realized, oh, they
Showed
didn't
a
even
replay
show
of it
it.
much later.
I didn't even see the replay, which is my bad. But
Yeah. And it was the in-car camera of somebody. I don't even remember who it was, but they like barely caught it at the side of the screen. It was really, yeah. I don't know. People on the Discord and I think people on Twitter as well have said that a lot of the decline in production quality is because, Fox is maybe undergoing layoffs and has had to kind of assign more stick and ball sports people to the NASCAR beats. But even still, like it's ridiculous, and it's kind of an embarrassment for people who have been watching it and know how good or how adequate the coverage can be. Like we shouldn't have to be putting up with this. We shouldn't have to settle
Yeah,
for this.
yeah. The
and it's embarrassing
NASCAR
to
on
put like Mike Joy, who we all revere as like a legend, to have him as like the face of it is just like annoying to me. Like you guys are putting him in this situation.
Even
For
Boyer,
sure.
even Boyer, I think
Yeah,
deserves better.
yeah, totally.
See, NASCAR on TV really has been declining ever since the 2000s, but it's really this year is the first year where
Here
I've
we
just
go.
like,
You're
or
going to
just
talk
like,
about the HDTV now, aren't
no,
you?
I'm not. I promise I'm not going to bring it up this time. But it's been in decline since the 2000s. But this is the first year where it's really just been like, holy crap, is this awful? Like it's been a noticeable dip, even from just last year to this year. Like this is to where I feel it's barely even could be described as professional quality. This is just, yeah.
I agree. And especially if you compare it to the MRN radio coverage, it's night and day. They cover every detail, they're enthusiastic, they know what's happening. It's just like they actually cover it like a race, like a serious sporting event, whereas Fox treats it like, an afterthought.
I
Yeah, I mean,
think
and even
Adam,
MRN is pretty poor compared to PRN, and yet it's still that much better than Fox, which just tells you.
I remember
I
one
mean, if
time.
MRN has any issues, it's that they kind of make every race sound like it's the most exciting race ever. But I'll take that over, you know, acting like acting like they don't care and missing obvious things, and you know,
I remember one time
Yeah,
Adam said that Fox treats every race like it's Sunday afternoon at the county fair, and I thought that was
that's
funny.
Yes.
literally exactly what I was about to say.
um, but I agree with what Jake said about like the quality has definitely dipped this year. But I guess maybe the way we should look at it is it's a trade off with the quality of racing, which has been the best in several years, and the parody and all that. So maybe we're trading like decent broadcasting for like quality of the series.
See, I get that, but man, like of all the years to have such
Oh,
awful broadcasting,
I totally agree
man,
with that too. But
yeah,
I'm just trying to find a silver lining. I don't know.
I
gotta dig
definitely
deep for
wanted to
that.
touch on just in general that this season has been incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah,
The last couple years I thought the racing was fine, but there were holes, and we didn't have we didn't have real qualifying. A lot of the races were you know kind of boring, not really enough action happening. This year, and there was also not really that much parity. This year, though, we've seen the full blown changing of the guard as far as the young guys really overtaking the veterans. We've seen great racing basically every week besides Martinsville, which I happen to be at. That's probably the one bad race this year. Uh,
that settles it.
and
Ryan can't go to any more
I really
races.
don't think the sport has been in a better direction uh, than in probably at least 15 years. Definitely in my time watching it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
yeah, it's been.
I've been
Go ahead.
watching. I was just gonna say I've been watching since the late '90s, and this is for sure one of the best starts to a season that I can ever remember, if not ever.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was.
I think this is the best start to a season that I can remember since I've started watching. So yeah, I feel like every race. It's funny. I think Martinsville was one of like the two that I didn't really see much of, but yeah, every race that I've seen so far has been like has at least had moments, decent sized chunks that are just like outstanding. And yeah, just the parody. We'll get to the playoff picture in a moment and kind of talking about that, but just like um, the amount of different faces that have been up front, the old guard to some extent, but also just yeah, the youngins, the new kids and stuff. It's been insane.
Yeah, I was going to say, I never did, I think, give my official thoughts on the race, but I'll just quickly say that I think that yesterday's race kind of distilled everything that was like good and bad about the season into one thing. Like we kind of had some of the aero problems that showed up at Phoenix and maybe even Richmond to an extent. And but the good thing was it didn't really ruin the race. Like, it was kind of weird in that respect, is that it existed and it was a problem, but it didn't just completely hinder it. Like after the tires wore, like 20, 30 laps into a run, you could make some passes, and we still had 8 on track lead changes, and it was probably the Darlington race that I've enjoyed most since I would say 2015. Um, and the only part that I didn't care for was, the I think what Merb said when Truex was drove on that restart like a geriatric in the carpool lane. Just a week after he was bitching about Chastain racing him hard, and then he takes out 10 fast cars. That was the only part I didn't care for, but the rest of it, besides the end, was pretty decent. I would also agree that this is the best state the sport has been in a long time. I feel like the people that are in charge actually care for it and have a passion for it, that it's more than just a paycheck to them. That doesn't mean that every decision they make is good, but I think more often than not, they're making good decisions now. And there's a lot, uh, among true fans like us, there's a lot more excitement there's been in a long time. It's really amazing to think in just really 4 years, just what a swing that there's been. Like 4 years ago, I could not have imagined having any enthusiasm for this sport at all. I mean, I was just, I just loathed almost every second of it. I did not think that it would ever get better because it had just been years of the same old crap. Um, but I'm really impressed and amazed that we've gotten to where we are now.
Yeah, wonder what
And
changed about 4 years ago.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think we all know. We'll get to that in another show, I'm sure. Um, so long as we don't start listening to the wrong people, which is another thing we'll touch on some other time, but I won't get into that now. But wink, wink, you know what I'm hinting at. So long as
Oh
we
yeah.
don't do that, um, I think we're going to be in for more good times to come. I mean, no, we're not going to have this same kind of level of parity and chaos every year, but if we can just have something that's in the ballpark, this it's going to be enjoyable for years to come, and that's something I haven't been able to say about this sport for a long time, and I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
We should. I'm conscious of time. We should wrap it up. Let's. Before we do that, let's just quickly kind of talk about the standings and what the playoff picture is looking like. So, as far as regular season standings go, it's Chase Elliott leading, 65 ahead of Byron and Blaney, tied
Yeah,
for second.
over a full race.
Yeah, which is incredible and speaks to the consistency that Elliott has had. He's just been an amazing consistency machine this year. 10 different winners so far now with Logano, and still some huge names like Blaney and Truex, still waiting on victories. And then some other guys like I think we all agree Reddick's probably going to win before the playoffs. The guy's come so close so many times now that it feels like an inevitability almost.
Reddick, this feels like when Larson and Chase were taking forever to get their first wins. You know it's coming, and when it comes, it's going to start happening. The floodgates are open. So I don't know how much he can win while he's still at RCR, but he's showing enough speed to be able to that. I think he's going to, and it's going to happen soon. As far as the playoff
Kansas
picture
this
goes,
weekend. I'm riding it. Reddick at Kansas. That's what I'm saying.
as far as the playoff picture goes, I think who's right now, like, is it Dylan in 16th?
Yeah, Dylan's 16th.
And Reddick is out. I think that's got to change. I mean, even if Reddick doesn't win, got
Yeah,
to
I mean
make it in. And
there's a 1 point
Eric
difference right
Jones,
now. So
Eric Jones has had a really nice season, considering probably not a whole lot of expectations. I really hope he makes it in. I hope Daniel Suarez makes it in too. He's had kind of a nice little resurgence himself, and I hope that we see guys like Dylan and Almirola who have not been coming out very good at all in my metrics, because they've been avoiding bad finishes as opposed to really being impressive. I kind of hope we see their luck start to regress to the mean, and they end up missing.
Yeah, I would certainly like to second that. More than anything, I would like to see Almirola and Dylan not in the playoffs because they haven't been top 16 drivers this year. Really, not even close. And yeah, I agree. Reddick will be in whether he wins or not. And I guess I'm lower on Suarez than a lot of you guys are. I think he's also lucked into some of his good finishes and hasn't really been that strong when you consider how fast Chastain is. So I wouldn't be upset if he missed. But let's be real. Nobody who's the 16th driver in should really have a shot to win the championship anyway. So it's more just, for shits and giggles.
That's why I know some people really don't like it when a driver who's way outside the top 16 wins their way into the playoffs, but I don't mind that at all usually.
Like McDowell
because
last
all
year.
It does is, all it really does is knock somebody out of the playoffs who would also be a first round exit, So some guy who's 12th in points just by stroking it is, if they miss the playoffs, then not really shedding any tears over that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, yeah, I think we can all agree that 16 drivers is way too many to be in the playoffs. I mean, that's literally half the non-shit box cars that make the playoffs. It's like we're the NBA now. But yeah, I actually agree with Ryan that I'd rather have a fluke winner make it in and just take up one of the playoff spots rather than having someone who can come in and who could potentially stroke his way into the round of 12 or round of 8 when he shouldn't be there at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't need any more 2014 Ryan Newmans.
Right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
and
Yeah, exactly.
I'll take that as my cue to kind of say that I think it should be pretty self-evident to anybody listening to the show, given the kind of fans that we are, that um, none of us actually like or endorse this championship system. That should be pretty clear, but it is the way it is, and so you have to play the game the way it's played, and that's why we're talking about it. But no one here likes this system, but it is what it is.
I will defend the
Said.
original chase, the 2004 through, I guess, when it was just 10 drivers. I'll defend that
04
till
through
my grave.
06.
But I mean, I don't like the idea of just somebody being able to run off with the championship. But I mean, come on, you got to make it so that it's at least sort of fair, so that every race means at least something. I think way
Yeah,
that
I
they
know
just
it's
yeah.
Yeah, I know it's that, some people would consider it kind of a lazy straw man, and I get it. But to me, like the litmus test for it is just the fact that, theoretically you can win every one of the every one of the first 35 races and then finish second in the last race and not win the championship. That's not fair. It just isn't. End of story.
Hmm.
All right. Very last thing before we wrap it up, gentlemen. Who were your? We already heard Merb's answer for this. He's going Reddick for next week at Kansas. But what do we think? Who are our picks?
I'm
Guess I'm
taking Ross Chastain at Kansas. I think he's been versatile and fast at every kind of track this year, and I think he will do what it takes to win.
I picked Kyle Larson. I think just kind of almost as a default intermediate track answer. But maybe just going back to last year and how dominant he was on them. But I think it's going to be a very competitive race. I think William Byron is going to have a lot to race for. Maybe just an extra fire for him, and Ross Chastain is going to be very fast. Uh, I think just we're going to see a really competitive race across the board.
Yeah, I also I went the Hendrick route, but I did pick Byron for this one. Just kind of feels like he's slowly but steadily just running better and better at this track. He led 57 laps at the last race here, and I think given that he's performed so well this season, and given that he's probably going to have a fire under his butt after this week, I kind of think he is the one to seal the deal here. Jake, what was your pick?
To be honest, I haven't come up with what I've been really sick the last couple of days, and I'm starting to get over it now. But I've just been, I've been sweating like Jimmy Page in a Quaaludes bender here. So I'm trying not to. I haven't even had time to focus on it. If I had to just say right now, I would say Byron or Blaney, but that's not based on any kind of insight whatsoever.
Hey, gut instinct. It's valuable, so nothing wrong with
Yeah,
that.
yeah, cool.
I think he's due for a win.
He is. He's really, really overdue, honestly.
Mhm.
Man.
I mean,
Um,
I won't delve all the way into it, but he is still right now number one in my ETDR for this season. So you know,
yeah, well deserved. Okay, well, I think we can call that a successful first episode. Bit on the long side for sure, but I think the introductions that we had to do, just kind of getting people familiar with who we are, what our kind of perspectives are, where we're coming from, is important. So thank you all for joining us. We will be back next week for a Kansas recap to talk about whatever other controversies Logano or whoever else has gotten themselves into. And with that, I hope you have a great day and a great week. See you next week.